So I'm going to review the 1992 350 tuned port injection engine I got from Hawk's 3rd gen into my 88 Firebird. Yeah, it's a Formula, but who cares? So I still cannot drive this engine. You don't know when it's going to cut off, when it's going to idle like shit. It just doesn't idle, it doesn't run. So let's go over some things that Hawk's 3rd gen, so-called specialists and F-bodies, have screwed me over. They took the goddamn distributor cover off. I bought this off of the Evil Bay, somewhere from China for like 40 bucks, whatever. So they took my money for a TPI 5.7 out of an 88. 1,299, so maybe it was like 13, maybe it was 1,500, it doesn't matter. They charged me $250 to ship it, maybe it's $350. They took my money, and then they called me back about 4 days later, might have been 3, telling me they can't give me the engine that I bought for what I paid. I said, well, that's what you sold to me for, you already took my money. And the lady says, I can't remember her name, she still works there. She said, hang on, let me put Bruce on the phone. So the motherfucker couldn't even call me. He had to have his wife or secretary do it. So he gets on the phone after I have to wait for a couple minutes to tell me, oh yeah, I can't give you that 88 TPI because it only has 23,000 miles on it and I won't be making my money back. I said, well, you already took my money, so that's the engine I need. Give me another 88. He said, it's the only one I got. I said, okay, do you have one from an 87? And then he said, no. He's like, I'll sell you the engine that I already paid for with a transmission and rear end package if I'm interested. I said no, because I literally did just put a new transmission in this car. In retrospect, I should have just did it. And he says, oh, I won't make my money back. And then he says, let me send you one out of a 1992. No, I don't want that. It's got VATs. It started in 89, blah, blah, blah. He says, no, trust me, I've been in that engine. It runs good. It has 72,000 miles on it. All a bunch of salesman bullshit. This engine does not run good. Starts up. Good. Didn't start up for me earlier. Stumbling, missing. Stumbling, missing. Stumbling, missing. Believe me, if it runs for a few minutes and the engine's warm, it runs even worse. He gives me this piece of shit out of a 92 Camaro, and I told him I didn't want that because of the VATs. And he said, oh, no. He tells me, this Bruce guy at Hawk's 3rd gen, so-called specialist in F-bodies, tells me, I'll talk to my tech guy, I'll have him bypass the VATs. And I said, okay, is everything else the same? He said, yep. I said, everything will plug up? He said, yep, everything's the same. I said, the AC compressor is on the right-hand side? He said, yes. So he gives me the engine. He says, I'll talk to my tech about bypassing the module, and I'll call you back. He doesn't call me back. I think it was like a day or two went by. He gets on the phone and says, oh yeah, I talked to the tech guy. I can't remember his name. He said, oh yeah, we went ahead and bypassed the VATS module for you. And then he says, we went ahead and charged $49.99 to your card on file you bought the engine with. I said, wait a minute, you never told me. First of all, I didn't know how much it was going to cost because he never told me he was going to charge me for the bypass module. He just says and talk to the tech. I didn't want this goddamn engine to begin with. I didn't give permission to do that. He didn't tell me he was going to charge me for that. I didn't tell you could do that. I said, you didn't even tell me you was going to charge me for it. I didn't even want this engine. So it was just 60 bucks. I'll throw in the TPI hoses for you. These two. So he fucked me over on that. Fucked me on the distributor cap. Ooh, he gave me the hoses though. That's not all. I get the engine. It has this fresh dent in it, which wasn't there on the runner. This bolt was sticking out. I don't know why that one's longer than the rest of them, but I put some washers on it. It was wrapped so tight in saran wrap that the whole distributor cap was crushed, and I mean crushed down on the rotor button. I changed out the whole distributor. I don't know if you can see that. I changed out the whole distributor, threw it away, put a new one in it. The ignition module, the cap rotor, all that shit. The wires were gummy and plastic up. I changed the wires. I took all the plugs out. I changed the plugs. I put the headers on it. That stuff's not necessary. This connector was busted off. It had a zip tie around it. As you can see, I put a new connector on it. I changed the map sensor. I changed the TPS. I changed the idle air control valve. I still haven't changed this connector. I have changed the idle air control valve connector because it was busted. This wire off the alternator that runs to the hot on the battery was damaged extremely bad. I replaced that. The fuel injectors were clogged so bad that I took the upper plenum off and the runners off, and I changed all the injectors. The alternator was dead. The starter wouldn't turn. I changed the starter. Let's get to this. When I first start the car isn't even running. The car won't crank over. So I have to call Hawks back, and I asked to speak to their technician and ask what's wrong with this engine. And then after, it takes a day or two for him to get back to me, about 2 months at this point, I talked to this guy, which he was a very nice guy, technician. They charged me to bypass the VAT system with this module, that I didn't even want this engine. I shouldn't have had to pay anyone to bypass it. They didn't ask my permission to pay for it. They didn't tell me I was going to pay for it. So he says, oh, okay, well, apparently, and I would undo the dash and show you, but I've already got it connected up. And up under the dash here, where my ECU is, he said that there's 2 different wires that go to the Hertz to the module. He said a 30 and a 50. I can't remember the colors. I think one was red, one was green, or one was green, one was black and white. He says, oh, I must have hooked up the 30. You need the 50. So they charged me for it without my permission for the engine I didn't even want, and they didn't even do it right. I had to take the computer back out. I had to cut his solder. I had to take the other wire off the bypass module, solder it in so that the correct Hertz was hooked up, and then I could get it to start and run like shit. As soon as it started up, it started banging and clanging and knocking around and everything. And I knew this when I installed the engine. I did see the oil pan was creased. I don't know if you can see that. I had to change the oil pan because Hawk's third gen had it so tightly wrapped with the saran wrap and had it tilted on the pallet that they crushed the fucking oil pan. So as soon as I finally got the car to start, the crank ripped a hole in the oil pan. So the engine had to come back out. I had to change the fucking oil pan. I did the oil pump while I was there, and then I put it back in and had it started. And then it would run like shit. That's when I found that all the sensors were bad. I did change the water pump when I was out. That didn't have to be done. But also, the fuel lines right here, the inlet and the return, the run on the front of the manifold. These, as you can see, these are kind of damaged a little bit. These were wrapped on saran wrap so tight against this that they were bent this way. I changed the belt too. It's something else that didn't need to be done, but who knows how old the other one was. They had these wrapped so tight with saran wrap against here that when I went to slowly angle them back, big giant gaping holes in there. I'm talking picked up on the corner at 5 o'clock in the morning, gaping hole. So I had to replace them. I got them used for like $70. And they're not even in the best shape. I couldn't even order them brand new at GM. So they cost me these. The vacuum lines are damaged. I've had to replace them. Oh man. The map sensor was bad. The idle air control valve was bad. I took the intake off. I did the gaskets. I cleaned out the inside the intake with some intake cleaner. I really cleaned the throttle body out. And specialists in F-bodies. They said that everything would bolt up. Here's the best part. When I got the engine, the harness for the engine later, I'm guessing it started in 90. I think it was 90 to 92. Maybe it was just 90. I think it was 90 through 92 or 91 and 92. So if you need to know this, you should know this. That the harness for this motor is not the fucking same on all third gens. It does not just plug up. Half of the injectors don't even get power. I had to route that and do that myself. I had to pull back the harness. I had to run it to the injector on the fuse block, came back and went to the green line, because that whole bank, the right side bank, had no injectors flowing. And the so-called harness, this direct plug-in, here's some more bullshit. I had to take my old harness from the TPI in this 88. I had to unloom it, take out the wiper motor and the washer motor, and I had to take out the wires to the AC and the HVAC, because the 92 TPI does not have everything inside the wiring harness like the 88 does. I don't know if that changed in 90 through 92 or if it was 89 to 92. Maybe it was just 1991 to 92. But what I do know is that it does not plug up. So not only was half the fuel injector bank not getting power, I had to take the old harness, pull it apart just to wire in my wiper motor and my washer motor, because it was not in that harness because the specialist said it was, and it wasn't. So specialist, my ass, they didn't know what they were doing. Just to recap, distributor was crushed, had to change distributor, didn't give me distributor cover, dented the runner, charged me for the VATS bypass module, didn't tell me they were going to do, and then they didn't even fucking do it right. I had to do it. Didn't get my money back either. Fuel injectors, IAC, TPS, MAP sensors. Did 2 of the connectors because they're damaged. I have not done the TPS yet. The oil pan was damaged. Had to change the oil pan. I had to shut it off immediately and change the oil pan. The car still does not run right. I changed a lot more parts because it needed it. The engine does not run good. It shuts off and runs like dog shit. So that's my review on Hawk's 3rd gen. I've gone down to them in person. They still charge an arm and a leg for a fucking window motor switch. The rip-off. This was a big con for this 92 TPI. The valve covers, believe me, were all black when I got it. I cleaned them pretty decent. I changed their gaskets while I was at it. There was gunk on the inside, the heads and the corners, which is normal for small block Chevy, but a supposed 72,000 mile engine that ran good, it was extremely sludgy. I would love for anyone to tell me their bad experiences with Hawk's 3rd gen. Or if you had a good experience, I'd like to hear that too. This engine sucks. Hawk's 3rd gen sucks. Don't buy from them. Thanks for watching my shit.